My husband's controlling behavior made me sick, so I decided to move in with AP, but then Benjamin, my husband or my ex-husband, male 37, and I, female 32, met at the mall in Philadelphia. I was going with my friends. Well, that day, my friends and I had decided to just go out to get some fresh air. Since it was a very hot day, we were wearing short outfits that revealed our flawless skin. So when we went to have our lunch at some restaurant, name withheld for personal reasons, Benjamin came in with his friends also. My eyes got drawn to him. The way he was laughing somehow got to me, without him even approaching me. Days passed and the handsome Ben, I called him that, texted me and asked to take me out. Yes, I was happy, but he wasn't as romantic as I thought he would be. His personality didn't match his appearance. It was totally different, but nonetheless, I fell in love with him. I also don't know how, but I did, and I somehow regretted it after he had shown me his very true colors, a few months after we got married. I was a vibrant and free-spirited soul, while Ben was rigid and domineering. I think me being free-spirited came to Benjamin as somehow a threat. I don't how, but the way he was acting made me think that maybe he had some insecurity tendencies. I loved to express myself through fashion and enjoyed experimenting with different styles. Even though my controlling husband, Ben, had always struggled with my sense of self-expression, especially when it came to my choice of clothing. Anyway, Benjamin and I started dating after I think 6 or 7 months of being friends. I won't lie and say I was not enjoying his company because I was. He was a very smart person, funny yet reserved. He had big dreams for his uprising real estate company. Our future goals and plans collided, you know. We had big dreams for us and our future. I loved how supportive he was towards my dreams and our relationship. Benjamin started being very controlling and manipulative to a point that I somehow find it scary because I didn't understand where he had gotten his behavior. I would sometimes think it was work stress or pressure, but no, it wasn't anything like that. His behavior continued up to a point that he wouldn't even try and hide it, even if we were in public. What surprised me a lot was the fact that he was busy staring at the girls who were wearing short and revealing outfits. He would even zone out staring at them, and I wouldn't say anything about that. But to me, and he would complain telling me that my clothes were for body sellers who didn't love themselves. He dictated everything in our relationship, from the way I dressed to the friends I could have. I knew that if I wanted to break free, I needed to do something drastic. So during winter holidays, we would have our families coming over either during Thanksgiving or Christmas, one of the holidays. That time we had decided or planned to host a Christmas Day lunch since the previous year we were hosting for Thanksgiving. My husband, or must I say my ex-husband, was very happy that we would be hosting Christmas Day lunch. He loved Christmas days, plus he was born on the 25th of December on a Christmas Day, meaning we would be celebrating his birthday and Christmas Day. Christmas was just around the corner, and I had planned to wear a revealing outfit to the Christmas lunch. It wasn't too revealing, it just showed my boobs and thighs. It was a red dress that clung to my curves and showed off my legs. I knew it was revealing, but I also knew it would make a statement. It was the dress I saw at the mall and I fell in love with it, plus it was red, so I decided to rock it on Christmas Day. I was excited about the lunch. I would get to spend time with both my family and Ben's family, plus celebrating his birthday, which would be the first time celebrating his birthday in our house. Little did I know that my choice of attire would lead to a life-changing event. I couldn't believe it, you know. As the day of Christmas and Benjamin's birthday approached, I carefully picked out my beautiful, yet slightly revealing dress that made me feel glamorous. I wanted to surprise my husband on his big day and the day to spend with family. I wanted to be beautiful for him. I had hoped that he would love my dress and compliment me since it was long yet revealing a little. Everyone complimented me on my dress. My husband, on the other hand, just grew more and more upset. I was excited to show off my confidence and enjoy Christmas Day and my hubby's birthday with our loved ones. I believed that Christmas was the perfect occasion to express myself and showcase my unique style. However, when Benjamin saw my outfit, he became furious and insisted that I change into something more conservative. He actually confronted me and demanded that I change my outfit or not attend the Christmas gathering at all. He claimed it was inappropriate and disrespectful to him as my husband. You know, I was, taken aback by his sudden outburst, tried to reason with him, explaining that I should have the freedom to express myself and feel comfortable in my own skin. I reluctantly agreed to change my outfit, but deep down I couldn't shake off the feeling that my husband's controlling behavior was becoming suffocating. He literally humiliated me in front of our families and his friends. I was so hurt by the way he handled everything. He should have asked to speak to me aside, not to just burst and talk to me like I was a non-living factor. I was so disappointed in him. I didn't even know what his issue was because my dress was not extremely revealing. I went to the bedroom to change, which took much time to find a dress that would make Benjamin happy. I couldn't help but feel resentful towards Ben for stifling my individuality. As the day progressed, I noticed how confident and empowered the family's sisters and cousins looked during the celebration, embracing their unique styles. I just couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. As the day went on, the celebration was finished and people had started leaving. I made a decision that would change my life forever. I took off my conservative dress, revealing the outfit I had originally chosen. With newfound courage, I walked up to Ben and expressed my desire to be true to myself, even if it meant facing the consequences. Feeling trapped and suffocated by his controlling nature, I mustered up the courage to stand up for myself. I was tired of Benjamin's bullying and controlling tendencies. I firmly expressed that I should have the freedom to wear what made me feel comfortable and confident. I told him, well, more like reminding him that he had found me wearing revealing outfits, and he fell in love with me while I was wearing those revealing outfits, and he didn't have a problem with that up until we got married. I asked him if he would want to start changing me when we were married, and not when we were still in the dating phase. To my surprise, Ben's reaction was not what I had expected. Instead of understanding my perspective, he stormed out of the house, leaving me feeling both liberated and heartbroken. The weight of my broken marriage was heavy on my shoulders, but deep down, I knew I had made the right choice. I knew that when Ben came back, I would have lost him. I know he loved being respected as the man of the house, and the fact that I had said all that in front of the family that was remaining. He surely felt disrespected and humiliated by me. It was just a matter of time till he told me what I had been expecting to hear. Later on, he came back from wherever he was coming from. When he came back at midnight, I had started to get worried about him because he wasn't the type of man that would go to clubs until midnight. Yes, he would go out with his friends for drinks, but he had never come back at midnight. So when he came back, he told me that we needed to talk about my behavior and the disrespect that I had shown in front of his family and mine. You know when they say, a drunk man never tells no lies because when they are drunk, they become their true self. Take that phrase seriously because as much as I didn't want to listen to Ben speaking to me while drunk, I had to. But Ben's controlling tendencies had reached the breaking point. He coldly declared that he could no longer be with someone who didn't adhere to his strict rules and expectations. On Christmas Day, when love and togetherness should have prevailed, he callously dumped me, leaving me heartbroken and alone. So he started telling me how much he loved me and how much he held me in high regards, but I had disappointed him. He continued telling me that even if he loved me, he wouldn't tolerate disrespect and humiliation from a woman. He kept blabbing up until he actually released the lump that he had been holding that made him speak in riddles for too long. He told me that he cannot be with me anymore. He believed that I would change my attitude and behavior and somehow become a wife to him, but instead I got worse than ever. I got really tired and fed up with Benjamin's tendencies, so I decided to just live my life just the way I wanted to be. Yes, I was married and I loved my husband so much, but his behavior was just sickening. I knew that if I had stayed and tolerated his behavior furthermore, I would end up either losing myself or my life. Ben was just possessive and obsessive for no reason. Till this day, I still say that what I did to my husband was the root of it, while more like his behavior was what drove me to find happiness outside my marriage. So I started going out on solo dates. The stress and tension was too much. Going out really helped me. I once heard a phrase that says, when a lady is stressed, shopping is the best therapy, which was not true to me because I was not a person who took shopping as therapy. So shopping was not what would make me happy or forget about what was happening in my house. I then started going out, going on solo dates or visiting the clubs in Vegas. I was trying to pass time, you know. I couldn't stay cooped up in the house for the longest time because I didn't even know when my husband would have time for me again. I missed him so much, you know. Even our intimate moments were no longer the same. Since I was so bored in the house, I decided to just go out at least twice or 3 times a week if I was free. I would go out to a spa maybe and pamper myself. I mean, my husband was moneyed and he was taking good care of me even though I also had my own money. And my parents were still sending me money for allowance. I was just secured and happy, you know. So all the money that I was getting, I decided to open a secret account that would save my money on. What infuriated me the most was the fact that he had become an uncontrollable control freak. Another thing is when he would just doze off during a serious conversation and always get tired after one round of our intimate moment. It was really a turnoff for me because I wouldn't reach my climax and he would leave me hanging and fall asleep. It was no longer fun in our marriage, and I hated that. I mean, why introduce me to fun stuff and good things, then leave me hanging when I become an addict? I was just a weirdo and a shy girl who lived with her parents and had no friends or whatsoever. But I got involved with Ben. He introduced me to a lot of stuff that includes intimacy. He introduced me to it and I got hooked. I loved being intimate and being freaky with him, just like how he had taught me. But he wasn't there anymore to satisfy my needs and desires. I didn't want to go outside my marriage and break my wedding vows, but I was driven by his actions, desires, and greed, I think. Time passed. I was starting to enjoy my solo dates, going to check on my work, then visit clubs. It was somehow therapeutic for me, and it made me kind of forget about my miserable marriage. I mean, we didn't even have children, for Christ's sake, so what my husband was doing made me think that even if we were to have children, that means those children would also suffer to get his attention. I was somehow glad that we didn't have any children or the talk of having any children because they were going to suffer like I was. I started getting compliments from other men, as much as I wished I was getting those compliments from my husband, but I was starting to enjoy it. There's that great feeling and increased self-esteem and confidence whenever you get a compliment from someone, either your partner or a stranger. Imagine being with someone you only see twice on weekdays. He comes home when you're asleep and lives early in the morning. When he is at home, he is in his office and he doesn't want to be bothered unless you would be bringing him something to eat or snack on, or he sees something to complain about. I didn't know what to do anymore because he was not even paying any attention to my concerns. As much as I needed his time and attention, I was really concerned about his health. He was too attached to his work to a point that he would just lock himself in his study or small office room the whole day. So you see how much I cared for Ben, even with his controlling tendencies? I was really worried about him, and the connection that we had was slowly fading. I had been patient for way too long. I mean, even the heart that loves also gets tired, right? And love alone was not enough if there was no connection and affection. We were more life room or housemates because we were staying in the same house, sleeping on the same bed, but the connection was no longer there. I had known there and then that I had really lost my husband, not to any lady or whatever, but I lost him to his work and the way he was controlling. Time passed. He started going on his business trips for months, leaving me in the house. What did he think I was getting attention from? So I went out more often. Well, more like going to clubs more often. The way I was so stressed, I almost got myself drinking anxiety pills because of the way my husband was acting. It was stressing me out. So one night I had decided to go to the club just to unwind, you know. When I arrived, it was packed, and to find out that there was an event happening. It was a great distraction for me and my mind. I needed it, and I felt alive again. I forgot all about my marriage problems and my sudden changed husband. I drank carelessly to a point that I didn't even know my name. So I hooked up with some guy that I had met at the club, and we actually made out in one of the restrooms, not thinking and knowing that the guy was actually taking a video of us making out. Such a pervert. One thing I loved about myself was that I would always remember everything that I had done when I was intoxicated. But that night, even God was my witness. I was way out of it, and I didn't remember anything that had gone down. I hooked up with a guy called Paul Martin, male, 34. The guy was so funny, handsome, and he was just a breath of fresh air. We just clicked, you know, the conversations between us were flowing. It was like we had known each other for a very long time. We had a great time together. Then from there, we became close friends. He became my shoulder to cry on. He gave me advice without judging me. My marriage lacked happiness, attention, affection, and time. That guy gave me all that. He made me feel alive and took me back to the times when my husband and I were still getting to know each other. We drank, danced, and ate. It was a lot of fun. I felt alive and free again. I felt like I was my old self. Not that I was going out and getting drunk, but I was free and happy. I missed being my old self, not a jailed wife. Was I wrong to choose myself for once? Paul's personality was matching my expectations. We had some drinks, and before I knew it, we were in a car. His car, to be specific. We made out in a car, and it was a great experience for me. I really loved the way he was doing me, the way he touches every sensitive spot on my body. I just couldn't get enough of him. What he was doing was just so magical and on top of the world. The man really knew how to explore, eh? Paul and I couldn't get enough of each other, so we ended up doing more than one round that day. Since then, we have formed something kind of a relationship or an affair. We would meet up in our secret spot outside Washington because I was kind of scared that my husband would somehow find out about my affair with Paul. And if he was to find out, I should be expecting the worst. My husband, or must I say my ex-husband, may be the sweetest and humble guy ever. But when he gets angry, the world would have floods and tornadoes, all of it at the same time. My affair with Paul was purely and strictly an intimate affair. No feelings were involved. I knew that I loved my husband so much and I wouldn't want that to end. I love Ben. In fact, I still love him so much, and I don't think there would ever be someone that I would ever love like I love him. My marriage meant a lot to me. I know that what I did was very stupid and selfish of me. I had not only jeopardized my marriage, but I had broken my wedding vows that I had made in front of my whole family. I committed adultery knowing very well that I was married. I had thought that maybe I was the problem. I started doubting myself. I had thought that maybe I was no longer enough for him, or I had changed and got ugly. What was I supposed to think? I started having low self-esteem. I was sinking deep into depression, but luckily I had Paul to destroy me from my sorrows. He was everything and more. I told my parents about what was going on in my marriage, and the advice I got was, in marriage you have to be patient with your husband. Just make sure not to make something that would drive him away from your marriage. I didn't understand that kind of advice because it was useless and pathetic. Days later, my husband once asked me if I was still happy in our marriage. Stupid me, instead of being honest, I lied and told him that I was still happy. I know it was a pretty dumb move that I had done, and I regretted not being honest in the first place, because honesty and communication is the key to successful marriage and relationships, right? But I chose to be a liar and a fool out of my husband, not knowing that he actually had a video and he knew the truth. It was just that he wanted me to come clean and confess everything to him, but I failed. About a week later, my husband had been home a lot lately, and it really surprised me because I even forgot when was the last time I had seen him around the house. The worst part was not being locked up in his office, working. As much as it was supposed to make me happy, but I was not, especially for the sudden change of heart. He would still tell me that he loved me, but I didn't, and I couldn't believe it anymore. I mean, there were a lot of loopholes in his act, and it was really alarming. One would think we were so much in love and would look like the perfect couple ever. But I knew my husband, and he was hiding something from me, and I had to try and find out what he was really hiding. I was so unstoppable. I was just hooked in the lovemaking that I was doing with Paul. I didn't care much about my husband anymore. I mean, I had got on my feet and I was getting what I had been desiring for the longest time. So I would just leave Benjamin in the house sometimes and tell him that I was going to meet up with someone while I was going to meet up with Paul in our secret location. Little did I know that the bubble that I was in would soon be busted, and it was not going to be very nice. I had changed, you know. The way I was doing things was really not the shy and weird Tamia, myself. I became the person that I would not even recognize. I had started lying a lot to Benjamin about my whereabouts, and I would wear revealing clothes. I'm sure Benjamin would see that I was lying about where I was going at times because of the way I was wearing and where I said I was going to. I really don't know what was happening to me, but whatever it is that was happening, I totally regret it. It changed me in the worst way possible. Even my parents would be concerned about me. But little did they know that I was actually having an affair with a guy who drove me crazy with his intimate action. One day I had lied to Ben about where I was going. Forgetting that I had married the IT specialist, I didn't know that he had access to my phone, though I had once suspected since he loved sitting on computers a lot. I told him that I was visiting my friend Lawrence, not knowing that he already had information of where I was going. So I met up with Steve in the restaurant. We went there to order something to eat before going to our secret spot. It is a 30 minutes drive from my marital house to the restaurant. If I knew that on that day the universe wouldn't be on my side, I wouldn't have gone to meet up with Paul. Paul and I got into our secret location, and without wasting any time, we got into what we did best. We made so much of S****, and it was so wild. It was like we knew that it was going to be our last day together. The way things were happening, I should have known that something big was going to happen, but with my nonchalant self, I didn't even notice. I was just so caught up in a small bubble that Steve and I were in. We were really enjoying each other's time and affection. That time, Paul and I were deeply in intimacy. We were doing all those nasty and freaky things. Paul really knew his things and had a lot of experience in this intimacy department. He knew what he was doing. It was like he was trained, you know. The way he was so gentle with a woman's body, it was like he had learned it from the book or at school. Somehow I wished that it was at least my husband who was doing all those things to me, but it was just a random man that I had got from the club, and that man called himself Paul. So during our intimate moments, Paul bluntly told me to move in with him. You know when someone tells you something while you are enjoying what they are doing to you? Your mind doesn't function very well to a point that you don't even think of what you are saying, and the impact that would take place when everything happens. Paul really tricked me with that. Yes, I had told him that I wanted my own place that would be away from my husband's controlling behavior. I think he had thought about the bomb that he had exploded on my face during making. When we were done with everything that we were doing, obviously we cuddled and asked him to talk about the stunt that he had pulled. The audacity and bravery of Paul. He repeated what he had told me. I just didn't know what to do nor say. He then explained why he wanted me to move in with him and silly me. I understood his explanation and thought about my situation at hand, then I agreed to his proposal. I agreed to move in with him and told him that I would speak with my husband first. I don't know if it was love or lust that was controlling me and making me do hasty decisions because I told Paul that I would be moving in the following week. That day I am Sue. I was very high on drugs, or the was just making me lose my mind. So I decided to go back to my matrimonial home to tell Ben that I would be moving out and going to live with my affair partner with Paul. To be honest, I really regret even agreeing to that stupid thing that Paul had done and thought of my parents. So when I got home, I found my husband busy on his MacBook. I greeted him and went straight to the bathroom to take a quick shower so that I would be able to drop the bombshell to my husband. I prayed that he doesn't make a big deal out of it, but my prayers were not answered nor heard. After showering, I talked with Ben, even though that wasn't something I wanted to do. When I gained enough courage, I dropped the bomb while he was unexpecting it. I told him again that I wanted to move out just to have my own place up until Benjamin gets help with his controlling tendencies. As I was still explaining why I wanted to move out, Ben just laughed. You know when I say he laughed. It was like I was a clown with a red nose in him. He asked who I was going to move in with. I told him that it was a friend called Paul. He then burst in loud laughter and told me to K off. You know the kind of laugh that tells you that you are talking crap, and you will never have any kids if you live with the mentality that you have. Ben agreed for me to move out, which was a very hard thing to do because I didn't know what Ben was thinking in his mind. I was somehow scared of the outcome that I would get, and I knew that I had to confess to Ben and wait for his reaction and response. Since that day, my life became miserable. I was paying for the stupid decisions that I had made. My only sin was trusting a stranger and telling him about my marriage. Worst part, even if I tried to deny it, it would anger him even more. So as I was telling him about my AP, he just told me that he knew, which was why he allowed me to move in with him. I couldn't believe that my husband would actually take his sweet time and investigate me, his own wife. I mean, what kind of sick she *T is that? As I was shocked, he gave me a USB and told me to watch what was inside the USB. He was too cool and calm for my liking, you know. So I played it, and there was me busy getting pumped by another guy. The video was just embarrassing and humiliating and somehow nasty. It actually showed me the real colors of the true Benjamin. After I had moved in with Paul, my life took a very dangerous and drastic turn. I wasn't expecting it, but Ben made sure to serve me with divorce papers first, then making my life visible. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. I first hesitated to answer it, but eventually I did, hoping that it would maybe be Ben because I had been trying to reach out to him. I wanted to apologize and maybe try and fix our marriage. That time I was at the mall doing a small shopping. To my surprise, it wasn't the person I had expected, but it was my worst nightmare, Paul. Paul called me and asked me to rush to his house. He has been held hostage and I need to help him. I didn't want to help him, but I somehow found myself telling him that I would be in his house in 30 minutes. He then spoke in a quivering and scared voice and told me that my husband was going to murder him. I had to try and come earlier. I didn't wait any more time. I just took the car keys and went straight to Paul's house. And I got the shock of my life. I saw Ben standing beside Steve, who was bleeding so much. I tried asking Ben to take him to the hospital, at least because he had even hammered him in both hands, but the husband of mine didn't even want to listen. Instead, he just told me to join the fun. Can you imagine that? I had really thought I knew Ben up until that day. I saw a very different side of him, a scary side of him, and I was somehow regretting even getting married to him, but my heart still loved him. What do you call that? I pleaded with him to calm down and reconsider his decision of wanting to hurt people because they had done him wrong. I think I infuriated him more when I said that because he slapped me with the back of the gun that he was holding. I didn't even know that Ben owned a gun. I was so surprised and scared. I didn't know the person who was in front of me. As if that wasn't enough, he took a hammer and hammered his hand with it, saying that he was fixing the hand that was busy exploring people's wives' bodies. What Ben was doing was really gruesome and heartless. The poor guy kept apologizing and begging to be freed. That time I was in awe of what he was doing to the poor guy. He tortured him until I no longer had the power to scream at him and beg him to stop. Even my tears didn't at least faze him. I really thought I knew Ben up until that day. I will never forget it, no matter how much I try to forget. When I tried to ask him to stop and have mercy, he just told me to shut my disgusting mouth and enjoy the show. But little did I know that my turn was actually coming. As if the torture that Ben was doing was enough, he bluntly told me to strip naked in front of the goons that he was going with. I tried resisting and told him that I can't just strip off my clothes in front of his goons and Paul. I would never forget the eye that he ogled me with. He looked at me like I was a disgusting piece of Esche*T. He then demanded me to strip off my clothes before he baptized me with a slap to take out the evilness in me. I didn't know the person that was in front of me. My husband was some dangerous wild animal that I can't even explain. After the threat that he did, I obliged with his command. He then commanded Paul and I to do what we were doing on the video. I couldn't believe Benjamin. I mean, how can one person be so evil towards the person they claim to love, their whole wife? Benjamin was really losing his mind that time, and it almost took people's lives. I couldn't do what he was requiring us to do. He slapped me and told me to do as he said. If I didn't want to do it, he would make sure that I lived in this world to suffer. His words were cutting so deep, I couldn't believe that I had once vowed and said I do to the man, who suddenly changed on me. I eventually did as told, but I opted for sucking his tool, Paul's tool. I did it with tears streaming down my face. Benjamin was just another person that I didn't even know, so I tried doing what he had told me to do. As I was busy sucking and crying, I choked and vomited everything that I had eaten. Paul told him to stop torturing me and that he should torture him instead of me. I didn't understand why Paul would jeopardize his life like that. Ben didn't listen to Paul, but he told him to make me submissive, just like in the video. We did as commanded, but I couldn't keep up with it anymore. I vomited again up until I had no energy left in me. Ben then continued to torture Paul. I just couldn't keep on watching, so I fainted and woke up in the hospital. What I saw really traumatized me, but the problem is that my heart still yearns for Ben, but I'm also terrified of him. I want to see him and have a civil talk, but I don't know how I could reach out to him. What should I do? Is what I feel normal after everything that Ben has put me through, yet I still want him. I know I shouldn't have let down my guard the way I did, but what could I have done? I thought he was my husband and he loved me. That's what I thought least. I didn't know that he was also making plans to disgrace me. My name is Debbie. I work for a fashion company and I am 30 years old. I love what I do, and that is because I come to work every day happy, because what I do brings me absolute joy. I also come to work every day seeing my all-time boyfriend. We practically work together. He is the owner of the place I work. The name of my husband is Paul. Paul is a big businessman. I met Paul through our company. He came to our company at that time to do business with us, and from there we began to see each other. Paul is a 34 years old man, and we have been married for 5 years now. The marriage between me and Paul has been a lot of fun for me because I was doing everything I wanted. I could afford anything I wanted. When Paul and I met, I was already in a relationship with my boss then, but Paul was trying to take over Israel's company, and so Israel had told me that I should try and become friends with him so that we would be able to collect his company back. I was able to use my charm to charm him. Paul and I started dating, and by then he had already taken over Israel's company. We went out for a while, and Paul introduced me to his family. I knew right away that they didn't like me because of their behavior towards me. I also didn't like him. He was not the type of guy that I like. He was always very suspicious of one thing or the other. 3 months into our relationship, Paul had taken me to various countries, and I was loving it. I knew that I didn't like the man, but I liked his money. Paul bought me various gifts, and I appreciated it, but I didn't want to take my eyes off the bigger goal, which was for me and Israel to take back his company and even get more of his properties. At some point in our relationship, Paul had told me I should stop working for Israel. He didn't like the way he saw Israel looking at me, but I assured him that it was nothing of such, and that it was not real, and that we were just friends who worked together. I went on a couple dates with Paul, and I discovered that he was very busy. He could get calls whenever we were together, and he could leave me saying it was an important call and he needed to attend to it. I didn't mind at first, but as time went on, it became a habit. I had told him I didn't like the way he was behaving whenever we were out on lunch, but he told me that he was going to change. Paul introduced me to his friends. They were about his age, and they were all married. I thought to myself what I was really doing with this man, but I needed to focus. I met his friends and their wives, who were very rude, by the way. I didn't like the way they spoke to me. It always looked like I was the black sheep among them, and Paul had always insisted that I try and make an effort towards them because he had believed that they were nice and friendly people, but rather they were the opposite. So due to a lot of persuasion from Paul, and Israel advising me that I needed to play along, I decided to go on a spa date with the ladies. I didn't want to go because of how they had made it clear to me on the first day that they didn't like me. I went on the date with them, and as usual, they were all complaining about one thing or the other. They were all saying my clothes were either too short or too exposed. Some of them were saying I wasn't good enough for Paul. Honestly, I didn't give any ear to what they were saying. I enjoyed my spa and I was trying to leave when one of the ladies walked up to me. I didn't know her because the ladies never introduced themselves to me because they were only interested in judging me, but I knew her, and she was the quiet one among them. She had introduced herself as Melinda. Melinda was a petite woman. She had tried to apologize to the ladies, and I told her to forget about it, and that I really didn't care about their opinion about me. Melinda and I exchanged numbers, and she told me she would love to meet up with me sometimes in the week, and I accepted because she looked like a kind person. I came back from the spa date with the ladies, and I decided to invite my boyfriend Israel over to the house because I missed him. I don't normally go to work some days because he knew I was on a mission for us, and he had understood the situation. Israel came over after work and we talked and just about Paul. We also discussed our next plan. Paul was a fun-loving person. He always made me laugh. He was the one that brought me out of nothing. And so when he needed me to do this for him, I didn't think twice because he had always had my back. I made food for Israel and we watched some movies before we slept off. I always felt at peace in his arms. We had indeed come a long way. The next day I was woken up by Paul's call telling me I had to come over to his house and that he wanted to show me something. I didn't want to go because I was in my boyfriend's arms, but he had advised me to go. I went to Paul's house and he had said that he had a surprise for me and I should go up to his room and see it. I started smiling because I liked it whenever Paul gave me gifts. I went up to the room and I saw a designer dress on the bed. I saw a note that told me that I should quickly change into and get ready. I got ready and went downstairs. I appreciated Paul for the dress, and he had told me that there was an event he wanted me to attend with him. I had told him it was too early for an event, but he told me it was for business. I went with him and we got to the event center and Paul had proposed to me. I didn't know what to say or how to respond. I had told him I was going to think about it and he looked disappointed. We had lunch, but I could see that he wasn't happy. But deep in my mind, I knew that I didn't want to marry him. I didn't love him. I loved someone else. Paul gave me the ring and he told me that he was giving me a few days to think about it. I went back home and I called Israel. Israel was happy when I broke the news to him. I thought he was going to be angry, but he said that it was a good opportunity for us to get access to his wealth and also for us to be able to take back Israel's company. I didn't like the idea of getting married to Paul. I didn't like him, and so I didn't see any reason why I should be married to him. But Israel had said that I should just endure for some time, that it was going to be over before I knew it. Israel told me that I should get married to him, and a few months into the marriage I should make sure he transferred the properties to me and I could divorce him. I believed him, and we decided to follow our new plan. A few days later, I called Paul to say that I had accepted his proposal and I wanted to marry him. He was very happy, and he told me I should start preparing for the wedding, and I told him I didn't want a big wedding. I wanted a small one between friends and family, but he had told me he wanted to give me everything, and also his family was a very traditional family, and so they wanted a wedding. The wedding happened and it was very big. His family weren't happy about the fact that he was marrying me because they didn't like it. His friends' wives had no choice but to plaster smiles on their faces that day. I didn't see Melinda that day, and I didn't know why. Maybe she didn't like me like I thought. I wasn't happy that day because Israel wasn't present. I was very sad, but I needed to do this for him. That night after the wedding reception, I sneaked out because I saw Paul talking with his business partners, so I knew it was going to be a while before he noticed that I wasn't around. I took some drinks from the party and went somewhere to drink away my problems. I got to a quiet place and just sat there and drank. After a few hours, I got a call from Paul and I had to disturb my peace. At that time, I was already drunk. I went and I met up with Paul. He told me he had been looking for me and he needed me to sign some marriage papers. I didn't ask what the papers were for and I signed them. I was so drunk that I didn't read it. Looking back now, I wish I had read it. I didn't know that Paul had made me sign up for a prenup saying that I was not going to get anything from the marriage if we divorced. I woke up the next morning and I was having a terrible headache and no recollection of what had happened the day before. After the wedding, we went on a honeymoon, but I had to cut it short because I was not interested. We returned back and Paul got back to work. I had a lot to do because I had to move my things from my house to Paul's house. I liked his house. Actually, it was very big and spacious. I finally moved in when I received a call from Melinda telling me she wanted to meet up with me. I met up with her and she told me that she was very sorry for missing my wedding. that she had problems of her own and she didn't want to be seen in public there. She had told me that her husband was abusive to her, and I advised her to leave him, but she had told me it hasn't gotten to that yet. I didn't want to push her, and we continued to chat. She had told me how lucky I was to have married Paul. I went along with it and made me believe what she wanted, but my heart was with another. Melinda was actually a very nice person, and she didn't deserve what she was getting. We talked for a while, and I was very happy speaking to her. She was a breath of fresh air. I told her she could come visit anytime she wanted, and she was very happy. I told her about how the other ladies were behaving towards me, and she had said that they were just being jealous of me. Melinda left after some time, and I decided to go see Israel in his office. I got to and I went straight to the Israel office, and I saw him with a woman who had been sitting on his lap. I couldn't see his face, and I closed the door. I was about to enter the elevator when he caught up with me. I didn't know that he could do this to me, but Israel had said that the woman was forcing herself on him. I was very angry because I knew I had sacrificed a lot for him, and he shouldn't cheat on me. He apologized, and I followed him back to his office. By then, the supposed lady had left. Israel had told me that he was missing me, and so that he couldn't wait for everything to be over so that we could have everything that was taken from us. I spent the rest of the day with him, and I left. Before getting home, I decided to stop at the grocery and get things to make food for Paul, and I ran into one of the wives. I decided to avoid her because I didn't want to make any fake conversation. As usual, she had nothing to do but to be condescending. I decided to ignore her and left. I went home and I made food for Paul before he got back. Paul likes the idea that I should be a housewife. I don't like it, but I had no choice. I had to do it just for my boyfriend Israel. A few months into our marriage, Paul's family started to disturb him about how I was not pregnant yet, and it became an issue between me and Paul. He had told me he wanted to have children with me, and I told him I wasn't ready. I knew that it was going to be a big problem, and I spoke to Israel about it. Israel had told me that we were going to use Paul's insecurities against him, meaning that since he wanted children, I was to tell him that I could only give him children if he transferred all of his properties to me. But I thought to myself that it wasn't logical, and I didn't have such a strong hold on him yet, and he wasn't going to fall for it. I decided not to follow the plan and just give it a few years before we could strike. I didn't like it, and neither did Israel, but it was the only way. I was at home one day when Paul had called me saying that his parents had called and they wanted us to come visit them. I didn't want to because I didn't honestly like Paul's family. They were so judgmental, but I had no other choice. He picked me up and we were on our way to his parents' house. On getting there, I helped them to set the table and we began to eat. Paul's sisters are really the worst because all they added to the conversation we were having on the table was how their brother needed to have children. I didn't really pay attention to them because I was exhausted from work. But when Paul's mother started speaking about how I was a woman and it was my duty to bear children, I became very angry, and I started to speak for myself. What baffled me the most was that the husband I married couldn't define me in front of his family. He was always mute. I left the dining room without finishing my food. I didn't wait for Paul. I ordered an Uber and left. I got home, and it wasn't long until Paul came back and he started to tell me how wrong I was to have walked out on his parents, and I didn't care. I made him understand that it was his duty to defend me, but he was not hearing that. We had a huge argument over it, and I made up my mind to just ignore him. I was so tired from that day and the whole situation. I called Israel the next day and told him it was time for us to put our next plan into action, which was for me to start acquiring Paul's properties without his knowledge. I was able to convince Paul that I wanted to work for him, and that I loved his type of business. At first it wasn't easy, but he led me in, and I started to move some of his money in different bank accounts. When he noticed, he had asked me what I was doing, and I explained to him I was only moving his money around so it wouldn't attract more taxes. I didn't know that Paul was also planning a different thing at my back. I have to give it to him. He was very smart to have figured out what I was doing at that time. In my head, I thought I was moving his money, but Paul was also moving his money. It was like he knew I was an imposter right from the start. Whenever I was able to move money and some properties, I could always rejoice with my boyfriend Israel. We could celebrate. This went on for a while until it was time for us to get to the part whereby we could acquire his company and also take back Israel's company. This was our plan. I was to divorce him and I could get everything back. But everything went the opposite direction. It was like every other day, and I was at home making breakfast for Paul when he told me that he was going on a business trip and he won't be back for some weeks. I was very happy, and so I decided to go on a getaway trip with Israel. He had told me that we could only spend 3 days because he was very busy with work. I was fine with it because lately we have not been seeing much of each other. I missed him, and he missed me too. On the trip, Israel received calls and messages from an unknown number. I decided to follow it up, and I found out that it was the same girl I saw on his lap in his office. I was very disappointed. I confronted him about it, and he had explained to me that the girl didn't want to leave him alone, and I believed him. I saw a lot of signs that were supposed to have made me smart, but I ignored them. I'm regretting this till now. After our trip, I made it my plan to go and confront the said girl to leave my boyfriend alone, but I decided against it when I realized that it was just going to blow our cover. Everyone knew that I was married to Paul, but when I found out that the supposed girl was working in Israel's company, I asked Israel to sack her, and he didn't. We had a huge argument over it, and he told me he was tired of me suspecting him all the time. It went on for a while, and I was not speaking with Israel. I went about doing my own thing, and after some days, Paul had returned from his trip. Paul had noticed that I was not really happy, and he kept asking me about what was wrong with me, but I didn't give him any good reason as to why. Israel's absence from my life then, due to the fight we had, was giving me sleepless nights. I was always thinking about the worst-case scenario. What if he was with another girl? What if he didn't love me again? These were the things that were going on in my head. I didn't want to lose Israel over a petty fight because I knew I had sacrificed a lot in the relationship. I literally just put my life on hold for him. I was not working anymore. I was living and sleeping with a man I didn't like. I literally became a housewife so that he could get back his company and also so he could get everything he had always wanted. I was literally giving up my whole freedom. I had to put up with Paul's family for him. I had to put up with everybody just because I wanted my boyfriend to have whatever he wanted, and this is how he repays me. By being nonchalant about my feelings with this said girl he was seeing. After a few days, I went over to Israel's house. I wanted to give him a piece of my mind. I met him at home, and I told him that I was going to return all the money I took from Paul, and I was going to divorce Paul, and he was not going to get anything. He became so afraid, and he began to beg me. I told him I was only going to listen to his pleading if he let the girl go. He kept asking me to leave her out of it, but I told him I wasn't going to. After much threatening from my side, he finally sacked the girl, and I was happy. I didn't want him to be with any other person except me. A few weeks passed, and Israel and I are back to normal. It was Paul's birthday week, and I was putting together a party for him. With the help of Melinda, I was able to organize the whole thing. From the event hall to the catering of the event, it was beautiful. Of course, I invited the other ladies. I had no choice, by the way. Melinda had said it was me reaching out for an olive branch. But I didn't want to. Those women were toxic. How can I judge someone you just met, just because the person is not what you expect? The party was in full swing. Top businessmen and women were in attendance. I could see the happiness in Paul's face. He was very pleased. Overall, we had a good time. Paul introduced me to many of his business partners. Some of them were very gracious with their comments, and of course, the ladies spoiled the evening for me with their malicious comments. I told Paul about their behavior towards me, and of course, he had brushed it off. Israel couldn't attend because he was busy, and I knew he could have tried something if he saw how Paul was holding and taking me around the room. Somehow I was happy he was not around to see everything. Paul's parents were also in attendance. I avoided them almost throughout the night. I didn't want to talk to them because of the way they had behaved with me. His sisters were also there. Anyone could see the tension between us. They had always believed I wasn't good for their brother. I didn't care, by the way. After everyone had left the party, it was time for me to leave with Paul. I thanked Melinda and promised to come by her house the next day. She was indeed a lovely person. I couldn't have pulled everything off if it wasn't for her help. I got into the car with Paul, and he thanked me for organizing everything for him. I didn't really like Paul, but I was always happy whenever he appreciated my efforts. He did have his bad sides when he just goes blank whenever I'm being insulted by his family. I began to wonder why it was so. Everything became clear to me when I found out that the reason why Paul didn't always define me in public was because he knew I wasn't genuine with him. But why did he then propose to me? All these did not make sense to me until later when I found out that he knew of my plans and relationship with Israel after we got married. I met up with Melinda the next day at her house. We chatted about everything that had happened at the party, and she told me that the ladies were jealous of how I was able to organize such a party. I had told her I was still very much confused as to why the ladies were so bitter towards me. She had said that it was just that they were surprised as to what Paul saw in me. I laughed because I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to be genuine with the ladies, but they had closed every door to that. They were not worthy of my friendship and my time. I got to meet Melinda's children. They were really beautiful. I spent some time there before I left. I met up with Israel and he told me that it was time for us to move to the next stage of our plan, the stage whereby I was going to divorce Paul. I was happy in my heart because I knew that everything was going to be over very soon. I was going to leave the marriage and be with my boyfriend, the man that I loved. Israel had told me that he was going to set Paul up with a woman and I was going to walk in on them, but I knew that was not going to work because Paul was a very careful man. I told Israel that instead of that, we were going to make it look as if it was my fault that we had to separate, and it was because I wasn't ready to give him children. I knew that children were a very sensitive topic. Paul had always wanted children, and his family had been pestering me because of it too. Israel had encouraged me to go ahead with my plans, and I was happy because the journey we started was finally coming to an end. I spent the rest of the day with Israel before I got home. When I got home, I saw that Paul was around, and I had a discussion with him about how I was not ready to have children yet. He flipped and started to accuse me of how we had been trying for a child for some years now, and how I was using contraceptives. Indeed, I was using contraceptives. I didn't know how he found out. Paul was yelling at me about how I was a selfish person and so on. I told him that it was my body and I was not ready to have children. When Paul was not seeing things from my own perspective, I told him I was tired and I needed to rest. I walked out on him and I went to bed. The next day, I didn't see Paul throughout the day. Unknown to me that Paul was planning something on the side. When he got home the next day, I asked him where he had been. He told me since I wasn't ready to give him a child, he was going to find someone who could. I became so furious. I told him if he had done that, we were getting a divorce. I saw the shock on his face and I was happy my plan was working. Paul didn't reply to me and he walked out that day and I didn't see him for weeks. Unknown to me that Paul had already told everyone that we knew we were getting a divorce because I didn't want to have children with him. I started to receive calls from his family members about how I am a gold digger. I also continued to give them a befitting reply, how the matter was between me and Paul, and it had nothing to do with them, but they kept coming at me. The ladies were not even helping matters at all. Some of them kept calling me names, and when I had enough, I met up with them and things had escalated. With the intervention of Melinda, I was able to calm down, and she had dragged me from their midst. I wasn't going to take their insults anymore. Melinda had told me that I shouldn't just divorce Paul just like that, and that I should think about it well. I knew she was my friend, but I didn't want to let her in on my plans. It was too risky for her to know about it. I wasn't really happy that I was lying to her. I got back home and I told Israel on the phone about what I had been going through. He told me that I should endure it for the meantime, and it was going to be over very soon. His words comforted me, and it was like he had given me enough strength. At that time, Paul and I weren't really speaking anymore. We were always seeing each other at home, but we were on opposite sides. I called my lawyer because I was already tired of seeing Paul. I told my lawyers to draw up the divorce papers, and it was sent to me within 2 weeks. In the papers, it was stated that I was to get half of his properties, including Israel's company. I waited patiently for him to get home the next day, and I gave him the divorce papers. He looked at them and he started to laugh. I didn't know why he was laughing, and he told me I could hear from his lawyers very soon. He parked a few of his things and he left the house. The next day, I met up with Israel and told him that our plan was already working out. We were celebrating when I received a call from my lawyer telling me that I should meet up with him soon. He told me that he had some things he wanted to discuss with me regarding my divorce. I immediately went to see him, and I saw that it was a meeting between my lawyers and Paul's own. It was in the meeting I got to know that Paul was proving difficult. He was going to leave me with nothing. I told my lawyers that I was entitled to half of his wealth because we have been married for a while now, and I had quit my job because of him. I had no extra savings or any other property that was going to support me if we were to separate. But Paul had told me that he knew about my plans all along and how I had been moving his money without his knowledge. He told me that he knew everything, and I was very surprised. How was that even possible? I was very careful not to be caught. Paul told me that the money I had moved from his account was later transferred back to his own account without my knowledge, and that I had nothing. I began to sweat. I was already feeling very suffocated. At that point, I checked my phone and I saw that my account had been wiped clean. But I didn't care because I knew I was still going to get half of his wealth. Ignored him, and I turned to my lawyer. I told him that I wanted half of his wealth in Israel Company. But before my lawyer could reply to me, Paul had told me that it wasn't going to be possible because he knew that I and my boyfriend had been planning against him, so he had made me sign a prenup. I started laughing at him because I knew that I didn't sign any prenup. But when the prenup was handed to my lawyer, I collected it and went through it. It was clearly stated that I was not going to get anything from the marriage in case of divorce. I became chartered because right there I knew I had lost everything. I began to cry heavily. I told my lawyers that I didn't sign it, but my signature was boldly there. How or when I signed the documents, I didn't know. I had just lost everything and I didn't know what to do. Paul began to threaten me, saying that I haven't heard the last from him yet. I became very much afraid. When Paul left, I asked my lawyers if there was any place where we could find some loopholes in the prenup, but there wasn't. How was I going to explain to Israel that we had just lost everything due to my foolishness? I got home and Paul was already waiting for me at the house. He told me that he thought that I was going to change along the line, and that's why he went ahead with the marriage. When he knew about my real intentions, I started to beg him to forgive me, but he refused and said he had signed the divorce papers and everything was over. Paul threatened me, saying he wasn't done with me in Israel yet, and he went back upstairs and came down with my bags. I continued to beg him at least for him to leave me the house because I didn't know where else to go, and he told me I should go to my boyfriend's house. Paul threw me out of the house and I went straight to Israel's place. I got there and I explained everything to Israel. He started to insult me, calling me all manner of names, how I was very incompetent, and how I had made him lose everything. Before we could finish talking, the police came and arrested Israel on the charges of fraud. I was crying so much because everything came crashing down at once. I followed them to the police station and I discovered that Paul had somehow found out that Israel was laundering money through the company, and he had been gathering information ever since Paul took over the company. I tried everything I could to get Israel out that night, but the charges were too much. After a few hours, I went back to Israel's house. On getting there, I saw people bringing out things from the house, saying that the house had been sealed. I lost everything that day. I didn't have a place to stay anymore. I took my bags and some of Israel's clothes and left. I was able to find a motel that day. I went to bed crying that day because of Paul's cruel revenge. The next day, I decided that I was going to see Paul in order for me to beg him so that Israel can be released. But he said he wasn't going to do such a thing and I should be happy that he didn't put me in prison as well. I cried and begged Paul, but he refused. I went back to my motel making plans to go see Israel. But when I was about to pay for my motel bills, my card started to decline the payment. And when I checked my balance, I saw that my accounts had been frozen. I had nothing left. Paul had blocked my card. Update. Hello, guys. So I did have to sign the divorce papers after so much trouble from Paul and his lawyers. I'm practically begging on the streets now, and I live in shabby places now. I wish I did better. I wish I didn't use Paul like that. As for Israel, he had refused to see me and he is blaming me for everything that happened. And I don't understand why, because everything was his own idea. I guess the people that are bound to hurt us most are the ones that are actually close to us.